We have Shayak Sen. Right out of college, he actually founded one of India's first UX design agencies, which was Cheese Corporate Care.
Creating iconic design systems at Practo and Misho. What do you think are some of the design principles that actually work for an Indian audience?
You have to be able to solve a problem from the lens and eyes of a user. Gen Zs, they have a different priority of looking at the information. They want to optimize on their time. So in Instagram, the reels or something which suddenly looks very different in the whole flow will help you anchor. In fact, YouTube did an experiment where they put 4 instead of putting it horizontal. Why are they even on this platform to make a sale of 4,000 rupees, and how does that impact their life? Because there was no way to see that information and get that information. There was hardly any data in the platform. We're talking about 2008, 2009. But to today, when it's almost 70% of the world population is on a smartphone, we the millennials, we have seen the internet develop.
Hey everyone, welcome to Behind the Feature. Today we actually have a very interesting guest with us. We have Shayak Sen, the head of design at Myntra. Shayak has over 15 years of experience in the design industry, not only limited to India. His journey has been truly impressive. Right out of college, he actually founded one of India's first UX design agencies, which was Cheese Corporate Care, setting the stage for his remarkable career. He's actually worked with Frog, one of the best design agencies in the world, and from leading design teams at Myntra, to creating iconic design systems at Practo and Misho. Shayak has actually shaped how millions of people interact with apps in India today across various segments. So, what are we going to discuss in the episode today? Today, we're actually going to go again into trying and understand different design systems. What is it that goes behind Myntra's storefront? And I actually wanted to understand a bit more about user research and usability testing. If you like this show, please do subscribe and follow us on YouTube. So, Shayak, what I'm going to actually start today with is, given that you have this rich experience across Misho, you've started your design agency, you worked with Frog, which is, after IDEO, one of the biggest ones. What is the one career hack that you can share with our listeners?
Yeah, I studied architecture, and in architecture, while aesthetics is a very critical part, at the underlying, you have to build systems and structures which is going to support that aesthetic, right? So for me, I think it was always looking at aesthetics and the craft of visual communication and design, and trying to understand the underlying framework that will support that. That is my design hack. Whenever I look at any execution or any design solutioning, I step frameworks, algorithms, systems.
And what do you think are the 3 things that it takes to be a designer?
3 things, I think. The first is absolutely good problem-solving skill. You have to be able to solve a problem from the lens and eyes of a user. That is the first absolute important part. The second one is be into the craft of it, right? To build your muscle for craft, the design execution. I think that is absolutely critical. And the third is imagination and creativity. That is very, very important, because if you don't have from the linear flow of execution, how will you come up with something which is very unique and breaks the regular norms, right?
If you had to give an advice to young designers who try to actually enter into this space, what would your advice be?
Yeah, I think double down on the fundamentals of design and craft. That is absolutely necessary. Okay, the second is go deep down and build your understanding of the processes and the business systems and product and how things work. And the third is what was working in the past, or the processes that we have learned is no longer applicable in the coming times. So you have to be very adaptive to understand that you have to design the processes, design the system, design the ways of working for design to be able to be a designer. I think that's very critical.
Shayak, you've actually spoken about design systems, design frameworks. Can you first explain what is actually a design system, and how is it that you've gone about implementing this through your career at Misho Practo?
First of all, I think why do you need a design system is because when you're building an app or a product at a very large scale, you need to set out the system so that first of all, the whole experience is consistent. You also, by making it system by reusable components, you can actually start gaining velocity and efficiency in go-to-market and execution. And you can keep evolving and adapting that system to serve your needs, right? So if you think of it like a organism, a human body, you have to adapt to the system to kind of build, cater to the requirements of the environment. So I look at the design system like a living, breathing organism that evolves over the time, right? So, and hence, if you look at it that way, there are three parts of this entire ecosystem. Right? The first part is that rules. Okay? And when I talk about rules, think about the rules are like, if I am a human body, let's say there's a first rule is survival. It has to survive, it has to perform, okay, and thrive, and it has to go out and, gain more space and all of that. For a business, that means that it has those rules are that the revenue growth has to happen. Those are the rules at the end of it. But these rules are then define the next set of rules that, okay, to achieve this, you need to have tweak certain things. For example, as a human tribe, probably you need to be closer to each other. You need to build mutual trust. Those are some kind of rules that you start developing to start operating better so that you can evolve and achieve your final goals. And that brings us to the goals part of it, which is the success, right? The metrics. So in design system, when you're building a design system, you look at it the same way. You have rules like, for example, your typographic density, your contrast, your things like the brand or the illustration examples, and all of these forms the rules, the basic, the spacing, the corner radius, and all of that. Now, these rules are very, very specific to what kind of audience that you're serving, right? Okay. Because you are serving for a Indian audience, like, something like Paytm, Swiggy, Zomato, you might need a very different typographic contrast and typographic density than you are, serving an audience in, let's say, Europe or US, right? Because you want that to be much more spaced out, and the density, you want it to be less. And also it depends upon that what kind of product you are selling, right? If you are a marketplace, a platform, then the density has to be high because you want to show information. But if you are a brand, you want to reduce that information because you want the brand to do the talking for your entire communication. And basically there's an abstraction to it, right? So based on these things, you decide on the rules. And once you have set the rules, then you design the components and the entire library of, whatever, you're going to use for execution based on those rules. Now, and once you have made those rules, you need to execute and see their adoption and also see that how they're performing.
Okay.
Once you see the performance, that loop is completed by saying that, okay, and the learning that you get from it goes back into adapting the rules. And this cycle goes on to keep this design system at ever-evolving piece. So that's how I look at design system. That you are fundamentally regressing to a best solution for your customers and the user base that you have.
So, Shayak, you actually mentioned very briefly, like when you're designing for an Indian audience versus when you're designing for a European audience. In your experience over the last 15 years, what do you think are some of the design principles that actually work for an Indian audience?
So yeah, I think for the Indian audience, and I think the bigger challenge with Indian audience is that, and especially for some of the mega apps, which has multiple, verticals and categories, like Myntra. Now Myntra is, and take for example Myntra. So in Myntra, we cater to different audience groups. We have affluent group, we have non-affluent groups, we have the value-seeking customers, we have mass premium, we have premium segments, and their choices are slightly different, right? And this is the challenge that every which is cutting across the value chain feels. If you were only catering to one use group, you could probably set the rules very easily. The problem happens when you have such a variety. It's like, So if you take the homepage of Myntra, for the Lux, you see we have a very different experience. Okay, because the Lux customers, they want the content and the typography has to give the sense of luxury.
Right.
You cannot crowd the space with too much of deal-seeking, information out there. I mean, deals are important, the discount is important, but not before the product experience.
Correct.
Okay. But for the value customers who are on the Myntra, this becomes important. The deals and the pricing, and these are also important. So you will see the density of information slightly higher there. Yeah. And also, eventually, the entire space kind of gets restricted. If you go to forward, which is a Gen Z experience, right, and the Gen Z space, that's again very interesting because Gen Zs, they have a different priority of looking at the information. For them, They want to optimize on their time in finding the right information and quickly make a decision. So you have to make all the information stackable. Unlike the value and the millennial customers who are looking at, they're coming from Flipkart, Amazon generation, right? So in the way Amazon deals with it is that you show all the information and then you do the comparison.
Right.
Okay. Gen Zs would like to quickly see the visuals, snack it up and see less information and be able to make a quick decision. And hence, by reducing the information and designing for less, you actually solve better for them, right? So different cohorts have very different need states. Sometimes we have one single design system which adapts based on certain few rule changes for each of them, and it adapts to all of them. In some cases, you have to design a completely different design system. So that's how I look at it. Right?
In 4 seconds, whether I'm going to be like actually engaged or not. And what is 4 seconds? 1, 2, 3, 4. That's it. Right?
Yeah,
That's how much time. How is this kind of, the change that has taken place for you, change the way you have designed the storefront design for Myntra?
Couple of things. Okay, so one is, you're right, the attention span is very low. And Myntra, I think first of all, our personalization and the recommendation that engine that we have is a very state-of-the-art work, right? And we have a very deep level of personalization. We exactly know that based on your browsing and buying history, we exactly know that which kind of products that you like and which kind of products you choose. Have a more definite liking for which brands. And this is something that we really, really understand by looking at your behavior on the platform. What we do on top of that is that we use extremely and design also plays a big role in this, which is data science team and the design and the product. They come together to build a system of exploit algorithm. Okay. What it does is that when you are on, and this is not just specific to Myntra, but this is also used across industry. So when you are on a feed or a storefront or a scroll, what you are looking at is that multiple products. Now, first of all of this is personalized based on your preferences. Now, what we do is that then you have a certain ability to. So first is the exploit part, which is the things that you already like. You are more likely to respond better to them when you see them. That's the exploit part of it. The second part is that you would also like to see something new, which is the explore part of it. Now, the whole game here is that how do you show a particular user the right amount of exploit content versus the right amount of explore content. And you have to interspaces in the right way so that just when you think that I'm seeing the same kind of things, I start seeing something new and fresh. And again, as you see that I've seen too many diverse things, I'm seeing something that I really like. That is how you keep the user engaged across. And along with this, you have to start inspiring him with creative content and everything. And that is how we kind of build that experience so that people stick to it. They are able to find something either new or something that they already like. You don't realize this, but this is happening behind the background, and this is exactly working at your level of personalization. That is what creates the magic.
This actually take our listeners through some of the processes.
So yeah, if you go and from the design point of view, if you try to look at it, we look at it as from a grid. So the vertical scroll is the natural scroll and the horizontal has more friction. So first we look at putting the layout content in a vertical scroll, right? And then we try to figure out that, okay, you have a sequence of explore and exploit, content that is coming in, which is going to be, again, personalized based on the user preference. So we slot it out like that. You might have a different slotting because of your preferences, and another person might have a different slotting. Right? Now, we go to the next level where if there is a contextuality to some content, for example, you can group contents of, in case of, let's say, Netflix, that all movies of Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
This is something that you can put probably on a horizontal scroll.
Okay.
Because if I see the first, content as whenever I'm scrolling vertically, I see a content which is Keanu Reeves, and I like that, and I want to see more about it, I can immediately go ahead. Because there is a reason for me to overcome the friction of the horizontal scroll.
Okay.
But if there is no context, for example, you say something like explore new content, and you put few items there which had no connection. People will have no reason to go, on the x-axis. They will rather go on the y-axis.
Okay. So is your learning that, or is your tip to people that whenever you're trying to use a horizontal scroll, or just make sure that these items are actually interconnected. Versus a vertical, that's fine because it's the primary source of
Right.
discovering it.
Yeah, exactly. So anything this is on the horizontal scroll should have some context and should be connected to each other.
Okay.
By the way, when we say that, there are sometimes, but this connection is also something which is very, very, subjective. For example, in YouTube, you have shorts.
Yeah.
Now, shorts these contents are not connected on shorts, right? In fact, YouTube did an experiment where they put four, instead of putting it horizontal, they also experimented with having, four different, and they, I don't know, went back to this, probably because they realized that shorts as a theme or as a, content consumption mode is contextual enough. The content inside that doesn't matter. So people want to just dive into the shorts, experience just by, getting into shorts. So then the content doesn't matter. And short itself is a very high content or context, a use case. And hence probably their horizontal scroll makes sense. I don't know the numbers, but probably they actually experimented this.
So what I want to get at is, how do you actually create a balance? Like with Netflix, the way it happens is at this point, I kind of know what it is. So there's a chance of me getting used to it.
Biggest challenge with a storefront scroll is, and you take Instagram to start with, there is no anchoring because the navigation is either on the top or on the bottom. There is no intermediate. You cannot anchor because you are scrolling across.
What do you mean by
Anchoring means that there is no way in the entire scroll you can go back and say that I want to go and see that, because you have scrolled so much.
Yeah.
There is no way to reach that part, right? It would be a little bit of guesswork. Yeah. So in a scroll, in a really infinite kind of a scroll, if you want to anchor, because everything you cannot put on navigation up and down, you have to put few stuff which is on the, in the scroll. And if you want to anchor that, you have to create an extremely different visual, cue and visual execution so that it visually anchors the user. For example, in Netflix, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, right now, you see the way it is executed. They keep changing the location, but because it has such a high visual, association with that even if you scroll and you quickly can associate that, okay, there's a 1, 2, 3, I want to see this. So you achieve, visual anchoring by doing a very different execution of the design, which people can immediately recognize in a very, so in Instagram, the reels or something which suddenly looks very different in the whole flow will help you anchor.
Okay.
In Instagram, you don't do anywhere anchoring, but in Netflix, you need to do, in places where this content, which is very curated content, you will have to do anchoring.
And in Myntra, how do you anchor?
So in Myntra, again, we have specific segments, and the segment execution needs to be very different. So for example, we had something called Trend Next. Now that is, and again, we are still exploring how can you make it better so that the anchoring really happens. So we have seen that whether you put Trend Next below or above, that sees a high level of, click-throughs, right? Because one is the way it is executed, second is also the content, okay, both of them. And you have to execute it slightly different so that even if I scroll down or up,
yeah,
I can quickly browse through and, identify that within the scroll. So that's how we can do that.
At the end of the day, numbers don't lie, right? And you mentioned the metric only. How is it that you measure success of your design implementations? Is it sales revenue or do you use some other metric?
Yeah, so I think, the entire shopping funnel, I think storefronts, of course, there are other matrices, which is, the scroll depth, the number of, widgets and experiences that people have actually gone through. And also for us, in the fashion, we have seen there is a direct correlation of the amount of styles that you browse to the file, your, revenue or conversion. I spend browsing to different, options and items, the better, your outcome is.
Okay.
So for us, think of this like, you get into a shopping mall, right? And if you look at it, there's a guy who goes into the shopping mall. He goes straight to one of the brand store, let's say Tommy Hilfiger, and goes inside, purchases something, and comes out, and then he leaves.
Okay.
A woman goes inside and she goes to all 10 shops. Okay, probably spends a lot of time looking through this, products. Probably doesn't buy anything, comes out, but she will go again back and do it over a couple of number of times, and then finally probably pick up one item. So you see that there is a different window of, exploration for both of these people within inside that, shopping mall. For us, it's important that how do we optimize and we make use of that window. Okay, so how do I show more different kind of products to that person versus the person who went inside and just came out, right? So the more number of styles that you see, and while the man who went inside and bought something, probably you want to show him different items, different kind of categories while he's moving out, which is on the aisle or on the lobby. You have some, something sitting out, things you might like. So these are the things that we have to look at, because we know that the more you are exposed to these things without, making your primary action of buying something difficult, the more you are, likely to kind of convert to something, or you will purchase an item, right? So this is where we try to optimize heavily, right? And these are the key metrics, which is the number of styles you have viewed, right?
Shayak, I want to understand how often is it that you actually, update the storefront, and what triggers these updates?
I think so. We update our storefront very frequently, and that is specifically because in fashion, you have different cycles, right? So you have the cycle of seasons, you have the cycle of festivals, you have the cycle of events that comes up, right? So there are multiple cycles that goes on, and also we very specific, our sale events which require. So in a way, it's very interesting because in Myntra, you need to kind of keep updated with the latest trends and latest. For example, we had a complete new section of storefront which was Barbie core when Barbie movie launched, right? So as deep level as this, right? Okay, and then you have Tej, and then suddenly Haryali Tej, and then now we are coming up with our festivals, huh? Dashera Diwali. Then we have the big, the URS, and then our BFF festival, which is again a sales event. So these all are so important, events that I think our general non-event, non-design, non-festival, we call it as a BAU page. Huh? Okay, and I think in a month it will be less than 15 days that is there. Okay.
So your design is always at.
Yeah, and not only the product design, I think the creative designers also do a lot of great work for us, and they keep updating the pages, and that's what they own those experiences. They do a fabulous job there. But yeah, you are right. We are always on toes to kind of deliver.
You actually in the beginning alluded on, Gen Z and how it is different that you're designing for Gen Z. Can you share with us, with the new Gen Z, what are some of the adaptation of the design principles that you had to do in the Myntra storefront?
Yeah, I think you're very right, because see, way back 10, 15 years back when Jacob Nielsen made those design, usability principles, there's 10 usability principles, heuristic principles, things are getting slightly fuzzy and challenged in the Gen Z era. And I was taking a step back. See, we the millennials, we have seen the internet develop. The first thing that the internet did was it brought together data and information on a click. So the first really useful platform that you saw were actually lists. You had Craigslist, you had Zomato, which was a restaurant list, you had Google, which was a link of all things. So I think it was all about lists. But the only good progression of list was that you could show more and more information within each of those list items. Like, for example, restaurant, I can tell you the rating of the restaurant. I can tell you how it is, where it is exactly, what kind of menu, what is there. And like, I can go to the NF detail, right? And we, the millennials, we looked at those data, we researched a lot, compared them a lot. I think what I feel is that the Gen Z have to era, because what happened after that was that you started realizing that so much of data is very difficult to process. And you just having a list is not good enough with a lot of information. You need to create abstractions, you need to create minimals, you need to minimize those data into something which is easily comprehensible and can be actioned upon. So Gen Zs have brought, are brought in that era where snackability is the, way of doing things. So
small snippets of
everything has to be small space so that I can make the choice very fast. You don't.
It's like the dating apps.
It's like those dating, exactly. Yes, one photo, and there should be one or two trigger points that should be, help me do that. And in a way, they're asking you to do the hard work. That I have to make sure that I look at all the data and process it and make it into one adaptation which is easily consumable, which is a good work. Like this is a serious good design exercise and challenge for us. So we do that, and this is what, like, they should be able to kind of compare quickly by looking at one or two parameters and then make a choice, right? So I think that is one trend that I'm looking at, and like you rightly said, in dating and everything. The rest, I think we are still exploring because Gen Z is a very, very interesting generation.
Testing user research, must have seen user research actually evolve. Where do you think user research is and how important it is?
I think user research is extremely critical in places where, you are solving a problem which, you don't have much deeper understanding of, right? And for example, when I was in Visho and we were solving for the reseller business, we had very little idea about that, what the resellers' trials and tribulations and what are the challenges that they're facing, and why are they even on this platform to make a sale of 4,000 rupees, and how does that impact their life? And what do they do with that 4,000 rupees? We really don't have any idea. So hence the research became very, very critical. And also because we have started, so there was less data, there's less information. Thus the platform itself had very less data to understand and the nuances of this behavior. But when you come to a larger platform like Myntra, we have so much of nuances which we can see through data. Okay. So here we do research on demand. If there's a specific problem that we really know that we have to go deeper down, then we actually engage with research. In fact, when there was hardly any data, I remember I was working in Frog, and Jan Chipchis was one of the most decorated designers of researchers of that time. He used to go to Afghanistan and places like that, and he had research for Nokia. He would go with his huge camera and sit with the local tribes and people and everybody there to understand the usage of this mobile phone, because there was no way to see that information and get that information. There was hardly any data in the platform. You're talking about 2008, 9. Cut to today, when it's almost 70% of the world population is on a smartphone. You have so much of data and information. So many of these requirements have evolved, and you need to kind of now support those research with other like data and like surveys and things like those, which gives much more specific understanding of it. But there are always those nooks and corners where if you are solving for a very specific use case which you don't have any understanding, go and do that. However, coming to the usability testing, I think that is hands down very important, because the whole point is that you are reducing the cost of failure. Okay. Because you make something based on your best understanding, but at the end of the day, it might not work with the user. So doing a testing, if you can do a testing, is always advisable in any form and shape, at any level.
How do you do usability testing?
So we make prototypes, and we take those prototypes which are now with all the facilities provided by Figma and the tools. We can make a very detailed prototype, and you take this prototype and tell the users to use it and see what they are challenging, or if there is some communication part to it, you show them those designs and tell them that what do they perceive with this communication. Like for example, we had a project called effective pricing, right, which is that the combined price of all the offers that we have. Okay, and we try to show that as one single price by combining all the price. Now, because we are working on that, we know how it is working, right?
Yeah.
But when you show it to the user, they have a very different perception. So we got very interesting inputs from them. We made some design tweaks to kind of solve those problems, and think there's always
talking about Gen AI and the evolution of design and designers as your advice to people who are actually early designers.
Yeah, overall the way I see things is that, and this is true for any craft, right? You take a carpenter or a potter, and somebody makes let's say very expert in making something, or there's an industry of, let's say, making pottery. Once you have the understanding that what is the most optimum way of doing it, it tends to get commoditized. Over the last 15 years, so many of design patterns which were being explored on a certain form factor, we're talking about mobile, they have got a large part of that has got standardized, right? And there's a potential that AI can generate those, and not only generate those, they can do it better with your preferences and understanding your context. So I do see that there is a huge potential of AI to contribute to the space, by generating really better outcome based on the inputs that you give. That brings the designer's role into creating those frameworks around which these AIs need to build those things. So there will be always these expert designers who will set those rules and the guardrails and what to look at. How do you instruct the AI to design for that? Like I said, that if I'm designing for a particular community and I need to, take care of certain things which the AI might miss, I need to kind of give those input to those AI and then those designs. And also at the craft of it, that how does the AI perceive that craft and things like those. So those are marriage of the science and the art that has to come more closer together in the tech industry. So I think that is where designers play a big role.
So Shayak, we're going to do a rapid fire with you now. What is, one design trend that you think is here to stay?
I don't know how long it will stay, but I think one of the design trends that we recently also in Myntra were talking about, and it's very popular, is the bento grids.
Okay.
It's, if you look at it, it's not, the genesis of it's not very recent, but the utility and the way it is now being executed has become a very popular, and especially after Apple used it. And I think it's extremely useful for a diverse kind of UI structure.
One thing that we would change about Myntra's app instantly.
One feature I think I would like to definitely have in Myntra's app is, and a lot of people have asked for it, and I also feel in the delivery apps now you can give some instruction to the delivery person, right? That you can drop it at my doorstep or do something or sometime. This is something that I think we should definitely introduce very soon. I'm sure we'll be working on that.
What is the biggest difference for you while designing for Vedanta versus something?
I think the biggest difference is that for the end consumer in Myntra, the transaction, the entire discovery, the storefront is the main part of where they spend the time, and then you do the purchase and the checkout happens, right? In Vedanta, it's other way around. The storefront is a very small part, but then the post-purchase experience, which is actually you get into the class and then this whole experience, it's a different piece altogether. So it's almost like a semi B2B kind of an experience where you have to, with onboarding experiences.
What is the most unexpected source of design inspiration?
I take a lot of inspiration from industrial design, especially from product designing. Because if you look at product designing, let's take, for example, something like the trolley bags that we use in airports, right? It is basically a combination of two things. One is luggage and the other is the wheel. Okay, and somebody thought that we can actually bring this to get things together and create something which is interesting. So a lot of times when you look at industrial design exercises, you realize that in design you can put two very disjointed things together and build something interesting.
One skill that you think designers need more of?
I think the ability to kind of break down the problem, that is going to be more and more, and able to kind of understand the psychological rationale behind why those aesthetic choices are being made. I think that is going to be
there is one concept that I do want to go back to and discuss with you is, you also mentioned is where less is more, which is the new trend. Is that something that you are a big proponent of?
So yeah, I think kind of reminisce, because when I was studying architecture, Mies van der Rohe, who was the father of kind of minimalistic architecture, less is more was the go-to call. But it's actually a lot of work to doing less is more. Less is more doesn't mean that you do less. It basically means that you have to create abstractions. And what is abstraction? I will just try to explain that briefly. So take for instance something like, let's say, delete function in a file OS operating system. You have a file, you want to delete it. How you do the general way of thinking about based on the IE is that you go to folder, you go to the file, then you select the file, right click it, there will be a menu, there will go into the menu to edit, and in edit there will delete. So this is a sequential way of looking at it, but then you realize that delete is a very quick, requirements that you have and all that, and then you want to create a delete operation on top of your desktop. And what is the best way of doing that is picking a dustbin icon there, and you just drag and drop it to the desktop. Now this is a design abstraction. You create something which simplifies the whole complexity of this entire actions behind that one single icon. And we do that in marketing all the time. Like when you say, let's say, just do it, and in a way you are talking about athletics, you're talking about being physically active and everything which would likely kind of represents. So communication or these abstractions are very critical in designing, in simplifying things. So when you say simplify, do less is more, it also requires you to create those abstractions. Like ratings and reviews is one way of these abstractions, right? So yes, first is that when you do less, you simplify things for the user, But while you're simplifying it, you still have to fix the right information which abstracts out everything that is behind it and make the user choose something which is better.
It's almost like the add to wish list and remove it.
Yeah.
It's how simple Myntra has made it.
Right, exactly. So like Dunzo it and Myntra's wish list are now, there are other concepts like wait list and all that. So I think there are so many things that makes things simpler.
Thank you, Shayak. This has been fantastic. I've had so much fun. Design is something that a lot of people, I don't think is limited to just UI and UX designers, but also for product marketeers. It's so important to understand it, whether, when you're working in this space. So thank you so much for your time, and it's great having you on the show.
Thanks, Visha. It was a pleasure being on your show and happy to contribute. Looking forward to this show out.
Thank you for joining us on Behind the Feature. If you like our content, do definitely subscribe. And we release an episode every second and fourth Thursday of the month. So keep a lookout for some very interesting guests and Indian top tech leaders who we're going to be coming on to